Welcome to Betting on Success, a podcast that dives into the future of gaming with a focus on cashless technology. Hosted by Mark Morton, aka Morty. From cashless innovations to incredible career stories, this is where gaming professionals stay ahead. Betting on Success is brought to you by your friends at Marker Tracks and Coin, leading the way in cashless gaming.
Hi, this is Mark Morton, and welcome to Betting on Success. We're going to go a little bit off script today. Traditionally, our guests have always been leaders or innovators, specifically from the gaming industry. Today, I have the pleasure of a strategic leader from a different vertical that I think is going to have a huge impact on the experiences of both the operators and the players. A leader from an industry and someone who has worked with some of the most iconic brands today. Brands like the New York Post, Microsoft, Apple, ESPN, the NBA, the NFL, Disney, Kraft Foods. My wife's personal favorite, Lululemon.
Yep.
Very good, very good. A true visionary from his field, the Chief Product Officer for Applied Digital, Mr. Scott Michaels. Scott,
Hey.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. Before we dive in, you ready to have a little fun too?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, before we dive in, I always want to talk and find out a little bit about Scott Michaels, the man.
Sure.
Not Scott Michaels, the professional. So, born in Calgary?
Born in Calgary, yeah. In Alberta, yeah.
Yeah, you moved around a little bit, you told me?
Yeah, so born in Calgary, moved around a lot as a kid. My father was the coach for the Olympic platform diving team for Canada.
Yeah.
For a long number of years. So that meant we moved, I would say fairly frequently, changed schools a lot. I loved that as an experience, sort of moving with the team. And it's been, it's great to then sort of like eventually settle somewhere, but it was a lot of fun during those years.
Okay, and family? I know you're a huge family guy.
Yeah, I have, I adore my family. I have a loving wife, and I have 3 great children, or 13, 10, and 8.
Brothers or sisters?
Two girls and then a boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mom and dad still alive?
My mom is. My father passed a long time ago, yeah.
Okay, living still in Canada or?
I would say my mother still lives. She lives in Saskatoon, where I spent a lot of time. I went to university there. My wife's family lives in Calgary still, yeah.
Yeah, so the Huskies, I did a little research
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, not that I followed sports a lot when I was in university, but yes, it's the Huskies.
And the unique thing, which I found super surprising from where you came or what you're doing today, was the fact you were an English major.
Yeah, even worse, medieval English, even worse, the most useless thing possible, felt like. In school I kind of did 2 things. I did like a track down, doing an English track for sure, and then with a minor in what's called retail location theory, which is like figuring out where you would open or close a store, like foot traffic patterns. It's a division of geography. So that was like, I would say almost more businessy than the English degree. But yeah, I exited with that, which is pretty useless. And then, I would say did the usual things right after school, and then started working. And my first job was as a technical writer, actually for a company that did a lot of work for the military, mostly around communications. And I was writing the manuals for this thing, and I'd be writing these 10-page workarounds for some problem. And to be honest, I got frustrated with that, and I started looking at the code that I was, documenting, and I realized, at least for me, it was easier and faster for me to fix the problem than write the pages for the manual. So I didn't really tell anybody for a while, but I was just doing that. And then obviously it came out that who's all these Git commits from this guy who's from the English side of the business. And then my career changed because I started doing a lot more of that, doing a lot more of the code side and the product side right from then.
But that experience that you had with the military or associated with the military impacted a lot of your focus and vision of what you're doing today, correct?
Yeah, it did, because I think a lot of that, it was just about building the right kind of product and not letting the tech get in the way of it. Like, what do I need to do so it's easier for the end users and what matters to them? And if it's more work for me, that's fine. Like, that's kind of the job.
Yeah.
And I always took that forward into all the places that I worked after that. Yeah.
And today you live in?
Today I live in Mexico City.
Okay.
Recently moved there last September. Mostly because prior to that, I lived in Vancouver for roughly 10 years prior to that. And we lived on a small island called Bowen Island, which is a great little island, very kind of like disconnected, a short ferry ride from Vancouver, great, like quiet living, all of that. And, when I talked to my family, we were like, look, we enjoyed this experience growing up of moving around and everything. And my life makes it so I can make that kind of choice. So we decided what's in the right time zone, Mexico City. I need to go to LA and New York a lot for the NBA and the NFL. There's easy flights from Mexico City's great for flights. And so we just packed up and moved in September. My kids are loving it. We're loving being there. It's been great for the business as well. Funny thing is there's more kids in my kids' school than lived on the entire island we used to live on. So it's quite a change for them.
Yeah, and they love it there too?
They do. They're learning Spanish really fast.
Yeah.
Well, faster than I am. They're not on Zoom in English 8 hours a day like I am. But
yeah. Hobbies?
I have an electric longboard that I love riding.
I looked that up today.
Yeah, it's fast. I do wear full, essentially, riot gear when I'm driving it because I'm an old man and I will shatter if I fall.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Like when I lived on Bowen, it was perfect for that. Winding roads at the sunset, nobody on them, can go relatively fast. It was great.
Yeah, they go like 35, 40 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The last time I was on a bird, one of those birds, not quite a long board, right?
Yeah.
I ended up in 6 months of physical therapy I took a fall. I
Yeah.
wasn't very good at it.
I'm terrified of a fall.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. All right. So I always want to find this out about my guests, and I know they're all super successful as you are.
Mm.
The mentors that kind of shaped your early years in the direction you took going forward.
Sure. I mean, I think like most people, I've had a few through my career.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, that company was called Infonet at the time. I had two mentors there. One, which was actually the person who hired me to do the English writing, his name was Simon Crum, very great guy. He was a mentor in learning to look at it from the business side and look at it from the users, like writing the manual. And then a mentor at the same company named Michael Vax, who was on the tech side, who was essentially the person who allowed me to do what I was doing instead of firing me, leaning into it and saying, this is a good thing for you to do. You can do both sides of this fence. And I guess like teaching me to, even when I spent that time, is to focus it on the things that mattered for the actual end users and not things that might be on the tech roadmap for marketing, for example. Yeah.
So you took the very average journey from from English major to chief product officer at Applied Digital.
Yeah.
How did that progression get you to where you are today?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So for a long time, I worked at a prior company that worked a lot on the Mac. So like my career progression was from Infonet working at this other company where we were working on things for the Mac before the iPhone. So this was like when the Mac was an extremely small market, including working on Office for Mac for Microsoft, which was always like a crazy, to be honest, to swear right off the bat, it was like a shit show some days because the plan back then when that team was only 10 people, believe it or not, it was finish Office for the PC side of the fence, throw it over the fence, and the Mac team had to quickly make sure that your documents could be read and written. And it was a little bit of mayhem then. But that set us up really well in working with Apple on sort of the things that they cared about at that time. And then when they decided to do the phone, we were lucky enough to get the call because there were so few companies that looking for someone, because Apple is not going to build apps for people. They said, we want to make sure we partner with someone that can build that for our big brands that want to show stuff when Steve Jobs is on stage. And it was, sheer luck, as make many careers. It's about being right place, right time, which led to me being the lead on the 4 of the first 10 apps that ever came out. Wow. And they were big. So the New York Times' app, when Steve Jobs stood up on there and pulled it out of his pocket and said, here's the internet in your pocket. This is very different than a BlackBerry. Interesting enough, that's actually the 6 months that my hair turned gray was then, and I was a young man in my early 20s. But the stress of that, I turned gray then, and it's been this color since. Because, of course, it was very, very late and nothing really worked. And it's, in that kind of launch, there's very little information and you're working in the dark a lot. But we did it, and then was able to work on ESPN. Again, was shown at the sort of like the next launch of like, here's the next set of apps that come out. Worked with some partners and was able to get that launched along, like a big team from ESPN, but a lot of us as well on our side. Sent the first push, which was the chime for ESPN, the da-na-na, which was awesome.
You're a singer too, I can
Yeah,
tell. Yeah.
The sort of the dopamine moment I remember from that is like when that was all over and we were actually out at a bar that night celebrating, and I heard all these phones light up with that sound because they had sent a push, and I knew that obviously everybody had downloaded the app that day and it did some insane number that even on the first day. And to have completely unrelated people I didn't know, to have a whole bar light up gave me chills. And
It's awesome.
Makes you focus again on what matters.
Yeah.
Worked on things that you certainly wouldn't do now. Like we got sent boxes of Etch-a-Sketches, which we recorded the sounds because we wanted to show Shake to a Race, because that was a new concept at the time. So that was fun to work on. And then just did many, call it 200 or so product launches over the next number of years. Nothing in games or gaming, all in large enterprise utilities and like well-known brands. Did the work for Bloomberg, moved the terminal to mobile, worked on business TV, worked on Newsweek, all of those sort of big things. The merger of Seamless and Grubhub, during those years. So many, many apps with hundreds of millions of downloads. It has been where I've been able to make my mark in a sweet spot of understanding how to build things at that scale, take things from very small to hundreds of millions of users, to today at Applied Digital, like we work with the NFL, we build the flagship app, the NFL app that everyone uses. We're embedded with the team at the NFL. We work on that every day. And that is an insanely scaled product, where usage is a square, which other people do, is not in other businesses, where you have no users, call it roughly, then everyone, like in the space of a minute as a game starts, or especially in the Super Bowl. And managing scaling projects like that isn't normal, and it's a special skill, but I love it.
And so you work with the NBA and the NFL.
Yes.
You and I've had conversations.
Yeah.
We're dealing with both of those, huge organizations. I mean, how are they different? And, how are the challenges working with completely two separate business models and directions?
Yeah, they are pretty different. It's really interesting to work for both. So the NFL, I would say, has this great power of like the size of that brand. Like it's just enormous. And they've, in a sense, captured as many people as they're going to capture. Like the saturation of the NFL is a real thing in terms of growth and, spending like that. And at the NFL, like our job is on league services, things that the league does to give to teams, and working on the app and the website and all of that kind of work, and helping the NFL navigate like changing vendors or managing churn in their app and things like that. That's all part of our remit. With the NBA, it's very different in that it's, I would say, started much less tech focused, because as a company, like we do a lot of things, including strategy, and we worked with the NFL and the NBA on strategy for 6 months, which was just simply, what are all the teams doing? What is the tech stack at every team? What are they using for fan engagement? What are they using for payments? What are they, what is they using for identity and everything? To go back to the league with, to help them form an opinion on, should the league provide any of these services on behalf of the league to the teams to make it easier and to make their life easier. And the difference, I would say, is between them is it's very clear that the NBA and the NBA teams is an extremely friendly relationship. Teams talk, they share stories, they share successes. The NBA helps facilitate that, and it's really great in that way. But it also means if you want to do something from the league level, you have to get a good amount of buy-in. So the thing that's pretty blunt is our deliverable from that project was 30 business plans. This is, hey,
right,
H team, this is why what we're proposing matters to you, very specifically you and no one else. How is it going to help with like ROI or ticket sales or fan experience or whatever it is, in order to make them feel good about, say, making a change. I would say the NFL can be a little bit more prescriptive, and the teams there are a little bit more like separate corporations. The NBA is really friendly in that way and a great environment.
So you jumped right into that. I apologize.
No, yeah.
So were you part of the initial group that started Apply Digital?
Oh, yeah, I was. Yeah, if we want to go back to that.
I
yeah,
want to go back a little bit further.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So yeah, we started Apply. It's been now 9 years. We just crossed our 9-year anniversary. The company was founded by a group of us that all knew each other from before. This was like a get the band back together kind of thing. Core group of people that we all knew and loved working together. Formed the company. We managed to get Disney as a client almost immediately because of our relationships that we've had, and again, luck and timing, things worked out well. And then having like an outsized client like a Disney from a brand when you're less than 20 people is quite something. And if you fast forward, we are just crossing 800 people now after 9 years.
Great group too.
It's been a real growth company, like more than sometimes 50% growth per year, things like that. And it's still been managed to keep our culture alive, which is we have like tenets about how we run the company, such as never work with assholes. That's one of them because that's never worth it, regardless of who it is. And to be staying really current and being like a team that is both strategic and can help with tech, and platforms and kind of do everything, even name a product like on the branding side, but not be like an Accenture or a Deloitte, we're not like a staff aug kind of firm. We're a strategic partner. And so we really care about the companies that we work with and try to help them grow and try and grow the business. And we really mean that. And all of our staff has that mindset of that, be questioning, like, why are we doing this? Is this the right thing to do? And making sure we deliver on all of that.
So it was really interesting. I was looking at your bio today on LinkedIn, and unlike other bios that you see, right, it tells you your achievements and what you've done. We've raised, profits X% or whatever the case may be. Yours was so different because it actually said what you were going to do if you did business with you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think that's important to differentiate what Apply does from like typical, like say systems integrators, because that's not what we are. It's about being a strategic partner, which means understanding like what are you trying to do as a business? Like if you're a startup, what's the next funding round? What do we have to do to get you there? If it's a big enterprise, it's how are we going to lift this business? It's all very ROI focused, which means understanding the end users, it's understanding the products, understanding the platforms underneath. And you and I talked a bit earlier, it's so much about differentiating and focusing on that for whatever product or platform that we're building. Especially in platforms, you transition someone from an identity platform, say from one to another, it's like kind of boring work and it takes a lot of work, but you're doing it for a reason. And that's usually because you're trying to change the end user experience. And that's where the value is. And so like we have to understand all of that with our clients in order to do a good job, not just like transition from A to B. That's not actually worthwhile. Yeah.
So when you look at your success at the company and you personally, and you see the growth, 9 years, for some of the clients that you have today, what makes you, I have two questions. What makes you different? And what was their focus, like a big company like a Kraft or Disney, when they first approached you to work with them?
I think a good example of that is we worked with Moderna, and this was again timing before COVID. So we were working with Moderna on like understanding them as a company and how they were going to grow. Understanding these kinds of ways to build vaccines. And we were hired for them because they actually wanted to work with a company that understood end users from an entertainment standpoint, not a healthcare company.
Okay.
Because if they had hired, I would say, a traditional company to help them like that in that kind of space, they would have got a black and white website that talked about health and was written essentially by the lawyers and was like not actually useful. But we worked with them on making it so it was about the healthcare professionals and speaking in that language. And honestly, having arguments with the lawyers, for example, about what we can say and making sure that the message didn't get too watered down. And then when COVID happened, we scaled with them during that time. which was crazy. It's the kind of place where it's everyone's third day in every meeting, as they were hiring so fast too. But that's pretty typical, I would say, of the way that we work. Is we go in, we help a lot of scaling that happens really quick, both on our side and at the company side, and changing the company at the same time, because it's a lot of change management. In the same way, I think that, like, when I look at what MarkerTrax and Coin is doing, it's about change management and convincing people that there's a different, better way.
Yeah.
And that's what we often get hired to play the role of in a company, is manage that change management, which, again, that's not tech. That is, why are we changing the way that we're doing business? And the work that we're doing at Craft, for example, is expressly that. It is changing the way they're doing work now, using AI to do some workflows, which is a very different and honestly pretty progressive for a company like Kraft Heinz to do it, to have a full AI workflow where we're actually helping the humans do the job. And, we've had these amazing results. This is now a project that saves them millions per month on the output. And I'm sure in the show notes, we'll put some links to that so people can see it, because it was shown at Google Next as like a success of doing an AI project right in a large enterprise.
When you mentioned scalability and speed to market, the gaming industry, specifically with cashless, has not been quick.
Yeah.
Right? Why do you think that is? And again, what changes should they be looking at for their player experience going forward?
Well, yeah, this is a really interesting question. So I think one of the things that's so important about why there isn't innovation or big change in the gaming industry is the same reason in sport why they struggle with younger users and younger fans. The same thing is in the gaming industry. We need to attract the Gen Z and Gen X's back into the casino, and it's just not really happening for any good and the reason is time. The executives at a lot of these companies just literally don't have the time to sit back and realize that the world has changed, and how they need to change their company to do it, because there's a fire every day. And when you come to them with an innovation solution or something that really is change management, or something that's going to change the industry, if they don't have the brain space to actually really absorb that, it's not going to land. And I think that's really why you don't see the change. Is these people, the executives of these companies, they absolutely can do it. They have the know-how. I believe they actually know how to do this change, and what it would mean to the business, but they just can't get out of their own way and have that moment and be in the now. I don't love that phrase, but to be in the now and realize, there are differences in the younger generation. In your case, there is a move to cashless that they see. The Allegiant Stadium here in Vegas is all cashless. These things happen, but it doesn't really register that it could be one of the many changes that need to happen. But it's so much easier to just sit there and go, oh, what else I can do is I can just license some meme theme and have it as a slot and hope that works. And it's just lazy thinking, and because they don't have time.
Time is something I know is something that you love to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. And expand on, right? Because what you said is true, right? Especially in the gaming industry that's 24/7, you're always got some fire that rises up to you. How do you think technology could help solve for some of that?
Well, here's where we start talking about AI and how a sea change that is for people. And this is where people can tune out because they think this is going to be boring, but it's not. Trust me. It's very different. Myself as a person, I saw this during the launch of mobile. When the iPhone came out, it was a very different feeling. Now this is a real thing. Actually people will buy and then spend. Remember there was arguments about that. Who's going to buy a plane flight in an app? And I was even from the beginning, it was absolutely everyone. No one realizes it yet. And so you had to be ahead of that. And I think what's happening in the last, say, 2 years around AI has made that same impact. It feels the same. This isn't like metaverse or blockchain, which came and went and didn't make a difference because it didn't affect our lives.
Right.
This is very real. And a thing that I talk to sports executives about all the time is how to get that time back as using AI to help them get there. And I would say very, very practically. I myself, I think I'm probably at the high end of it, but I have workflows that save me 40 to 60 hours a month So if I'm getting an extra week, a month of productivity back, that's very meaningful. And one of the things I'd love to do for your audience is, we'll put this in the show notes, is I'm going to give you some tools in a playbook that I give to sports executives all the time and gaming executives on just how to get some time back. And why don't I start with, like, everyone should be using any one of the LLMs to help them in their day. Okay. And I think that especially people that are in business, they get a little worried. Oh, like some people are good at it. Do I need to become what's called a prompt engineer? Like, is the learning curve too steep here? The answer is it's not. And so as someone who does this, I would say at an expert level, my most used prompt is actually write me a better prompt.
Right. Yeah.
It's what is an LLM or like really good at? What's it great at? Writing text. What's a prompt? It's just text. So, well, we'll put this in the show notes for you guys to grab, but this is probably the one that saves me 10 hours a month. Like, put an ill-formed, terrible idea in, and it's gonna respond, ask you a couple questions, and it's gonna not only write you a better prompt, it's also gonna do what's called a one-shot. It's gonna just try to give you an answer that's better than you would have been able to do yourself. And you can just start using it today. And you can use it in any of the LLMs that you're using that your casino will let you use, or your sports franchise. And like, you're going to start just getting hours back right away just from that. And the barrier to entry here is like near zero. Because you're just going to copy and paste it. Like, you can get fancier. I have it as a custom GPT or whatever, but like, that's not even important. And I talk about this all the time at the executive level, as people get wound up in this. And I'm like, you don't need to be a prompt engineer.
Right.
Just like, it's there to help you. And it's amazing what it can do for you. Like, from coming from an industry where there are no such thing as nights and weekends in sports, their games are on the nights and weekends and holidays. Family life is essentially ruined in many ways. The gaming industry is the same. I told you right before this call, I got a text of, I'm supposed to have a meeting, with one of the casino operators here. And they said, we need to have this meeting in the next 30 hours. And I'm like, that's such a gaming term. Not the next day during business hours or anything scheduled. It's like in the next 30. I'm like, does this mean me 2 a.m? Maybe, right? And it's the same in sports. And so I'd love to let your audience start to have some of these tools so they can get that time back.
It'd be awesome.
That playbook kind of goes like, and listen, it's all nothing even past a basic level, but it's going to give you tons of time back. It's going to give you the prompt for writing better prompts. That's number one. Second one just describes how to use some of the other tools that are out there. Again, very low impact. One is from Google. It's called Notebook LM. And this is something that can analyze documents. This is something that doesn't lie. So this is, for those that don't understand this term, it's called RAG. Again, not important. Don't care.
Right.
The point is that ChatGPT and Perplexity, I would say somewhat creative in the way that they can answer you. This is a non-creative version of that. So it will, like, if you upload a document, it's only going to tell you what it knows from that document. And it can even take a really boring document and it can generate a podcast. So a bunch of my sports executives that I work with.
Take a note on that, please.
Yeah, they will have a document that they're supposed to read, and they will put it in there, and then they can listen to it on their commute. There's so much time flying and in the air that this becomes dead space. And this is how you start getting time back, is just transporting the content into like something you can use. And believe me, it's an interesting 2-person conversation from an AI voice. Generally it's a female and a male talking about the subject. They have banter just like you and I.
Right.
But it's talking about your document. Like at our company, we do our onboarding with it. It talks about how you access the office, how you get to the Wi-Fi, like how the office works, and it's like a chat, and it's really amazing. And in the case of sports, we have a bunch of like really, let's call it brutal legal documents. Like the team operations manual is a good example,
right.
Which is like, okay, we're a team, we have a new sponsor in gaming. Obviously, it's a little bit on the edge of what we're allowed to do. Let's go see. And it's like the legal language for how can you use that kind of sponsor, for example. And it's a document that only lawyers can read. But I take this document, I put it in Notebook LM, I can ask that question, and it's going to take me exactly to the instances where that language is. And that's going to save me 10 hours of legal fees, probably just that. And listen, I am sure the lawyers are using it and billing you for a full 10 hours, but you don't need to have them do that. And these are tools that you can use in your daily life. just to synthesize documents, especially gaming regulations, for example. Like, why would I ever read that when I can just talk to it or ask it a question? And especially in a case where it's not going to lie to me and you can trust the answer, it's a game changer to getting time back.
So that's really interesting, because time is somewhat abstract, right? When you talk about, my first job I ever had was with Xerox, and we introduced the first document feeder and the first sorter, and we'd always say, well, it's going to save you X amount of time. When there's not a definable ROI that you can clearly see, especially in your business, because you help in that area, how do you drive that person to realize that it's going to save them not only, I mean, it's going to save them money, but there's also the time aspect, and you look at them together, and all of a sudden you've got something special, but it's hard to get them to see something they can't touch or feel.
Oh, 100%. I think there's sort of two things you're touching on there. I think that there are ones where you can very clearly define the ROI, like some of the work that we delivered for Kraft Heinz, which is, like this AI workflow that helps them concept a new product, puts it in the packaging. They can see it in the packaging that Kraft can produce. It helps add what's often called like the brand voice to it to ensure that's correct. And like the phrase there was 8 weeks to 8 hours. That was the difference in time to market. And so like that's very ROI driven. Like you can
question.
Yeah, it's huge. Like that's millions, and you can do that. And I think that that's scalable to lots of businesses. But for executives, like when you're talking about just getting time back themselves, usually you have to do it you have to story tell it, right? Which is, I always use the one, like for me, is like, as someone who has to sign a lot of NDAs, I realized I could just take 20 NDAs that I've agreed to and put it into an LLM. And then when I get a new one, I just simply say, have I ever not agreed to something that's in this one I just gave you? And if it says no, you've agreed to these terms in the past, sign it and go. Like, so that's 4 to 5 hours per NDA that I personally had to drill through boilerplate for, which I spend zero time on now. And even if it does say, yes, oh, look, there's this weird non-solicit in here or something that shouldn't be there at this stage, then I can go directly back to whoever that was for and go like, I'm good with everything except this. I am calling them back 5 minutes after they sent me, instead of, and like hours and rescheduling. And that immediacy and getting things off your plate is amazing. We often use the phrase arrows in and arrows out in sports, which is you go to a meeting and you just get filled with arrows like a Spartan. You just get like, all the arrows are sticking in you. It's all on you.
Right.
And instead, we try to be arrows out, which is like immediately quick turn around and shoot all of those back out to all the different people that had to get answers. And it's like some of the AI tools will just help you do that immediately. And that takes up so much of your brain space, that context switching, especially, say, between teams or between vendors or partners. It makes a meaningful impact in your home life, too, because you're more present. Yeah. Because there's just stuff that just isn't on your mind as much as it was before. And I mean, I even do things which are, you can call it kind of silly, but it saves time for me and like makes me feel better, is when I had to make lunches for my kids, we built a product for Kraft called, what was it called? Oh, it was basically, we took all of Kraft's recipes. It was Trioli was the name of it. And I would just say, hey, I need to make lunches for 3 kids. I want it to be meal prepped. They have these likes and dislikes, no peanuts. And then it would be like, yep, here you go. And I would know what to get, and I could meal prep it, and I didn't have to think about it. And those kinds of things, AIs are great at doing that, even in your home life, to help you just erase things which are mundane and just get back to being with your family.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing, is we've had the pleasure of working with your company.
Yeah.
And when I first was brought into the experience, my expectation was very different than my experience. So when you came in, I thought you were going to talk to the operator, which you did, and different businesses in the segment. But what was really different about it is you drilled it all the way down to the players. You asked me to get players that played at different sorts of casinos or markets. Today, it seems like more and more of the development work is now more geared towards the end user, whereas my expectation, I guess because I'm old, it was on the brand or the business, right? So tell me a little bit about those thoughts
Sure.
from that avenue.
I think, again, that's a differentiating between being a company like Apply, which has like a very strong product background, than like a systems integrator who just is going to do tech. Is we do expect to be able to get that access to your end users and understand them and create personas and, then essentially use all the tools at our disposal, like in the meetings with marketing and executives at the companies we work with, and essentially have not the argument, but the discussion of, well, you want this feature, but do these people even care?
Right.
You might be thinking of it from a pure marketing standpoint or revenue or something like that, but none of that matters if the people aren't going to use it. And one thing that I would say has changed in the last, several months is we still do all of those, we call it primary research, right? Like talking to the end users at different tiers, understanding them. We do this in sport as well, even though people are like, oh, we've done 1 million, we understand our players really well, or we understand our fan base. And then we go and interview them, we're like, no, you don't. Like,
right, yeah.
There's still holes in that. We now also employ synthetic interviews. So imagine I take 20 interviews of real people and I have them broken up into personas, and I take all of that context and then I feed it into like an LLM, an agent, and then that agent can actually understand a little bit more, meaning like I could take the theoretical win-loss statements of players that are in a certain tier, and I can give it access to that. I can give it access to web traffic and things like that. So imagine that there's a persona which is not just based on interviews and talking, but also has like good mechanics behind it. And then now I can ask a persona in the LLM. I can have a conversation with a customer who's not real. And if it comes up with anything interesting, then I'll go validate it still with the real people. But if I'm doing 20 real interviews, I might do 100 synthetic, just to round out a bunch of coverage. And we found that to be super successful.
Well, I know the work you did with us completely transformed who we are, because who we thought we needed to be and the direction we thought we needed to go was so far off to what we've tried to actually become today. And without that sort of, relationship with your company, it wouldn't have been possible.
Oh, thank you for that. I think it's a process that we repeat with everyone, which is like, what is the North Star that we're after?
Special, aren't we?
Well, your product is special, certainly, but like the process is repeatable in that it's about finding the North Star, and I'm not a huge fan of that term, but it's about that. It's about understanding like the KPIs and the levers and what's actually going to move the needle and what's not, and just focusing on that and always having the end customer in view, like especially around things that deal with people's money. That's like,
critical.
Boy, it's a touchy subject, yes. And you have to be really careful around that, and you have to have really high security standards. Like that's all table stakes stuff. Yeah. So you have to go above and beyond on the experience to actually have people want to do. Let's call it the friction. Like with you guys, we talked a lot about that, and with a lot of products, you have to do. Like you have to build up the goodwill, and then you spend it to get them to do something, like fund a wallet or whatever it is. And it's like you have to treat the user's happiness as a currency, within the product itself, and to have it look at it with that view. Like if I'm gonna, like it's a really basic example, but let's say in an app and I want you to say yes to getting push notifications. The worst time for me to ask you is as soon as you open up the app. Your uptake on that 1% to 2%. Awful. And then the way that Apple works, I'll never get to ask you again. Like I've completely wasted this opportunity. And I mean, this is a very basic example, but my time to ask you that is when it's in a benefit to you, right? Yeah. Like in an airline, if they do it right, it's like to give you notifications about a flight change. Yes, that's important to me, but not right off the bat, let me send you marketing. Like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And having that viewpoint of that, like the person's emotions as a very big impact, or their dopamine level at the moment when they're using your product is really important. In gaming, the people talk, they maybe it's not such a great term. People don't love it because it's a bit on the edge of what you're sort of allowed to say around gaming regulations, but you're really a dopamine farmer, right?
Yes, you are.
Yep. And so like while people are doing that and playing slots, I think that applies to everything around a property in the gaming space. It's not just when they're playing, it's are they happy walking in? Are they happy when they walked out? Like, how are you bringing them back? Are you giving them the right things to make them happy? Those are all dopamine hits that you're after. And I remember for you guys, one of the things that I wrote for you was a dopamine farmer, which described your product and let you ask it questions. And I think that like that's a normal thing, course of business to do now, is to build these kinds of models. And also it's just a lot of fun. Like, it just really brings everybody back to understanding the end users, even people like it's say sales or marketing who aren't often as attached to it. To have them like to be able to off the cuff, like, hey, I have an idea, and bounce it off in AI is actually really valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because our business really hasn't changed dramatically. The player's experience at a table or at a slot machine is different than it was coin when it was just purely coin. Mm-hmm. But the reality, there's really nothing different about the experience. A, why do you think that is? And B, where do you think it needs to go?
Sure. Well, I think one of the things, again, it is that I think there's a lot of innovative products in market that just aren't adopted. Again, it's the change management and having people actually start piloting these things. And I know people hate the word pilot because there's no revenue attached to it. But find a way to make revenue attached to trying these different things on the properties. Like, that's just the mentality. It can't be, this seems cool. That doesn't play in today's market with the economy the way it is at all. With none of our customers that works. So everything has to be ROI driven. So like the change has to be handled, like I would say, if you're on the vendor side, by very clear ROI patterns that spend $2 to get $5. Right. And if you can't do that, then like now is not the time to be selling a different way. Like, that's the way to sell it in. On the operator side, they're obviously thinking about the player experience managed to their dopamine. So like improving that might not have direct ROI, but that matters. But having the time to get out of that fire and talk to people like yourselves about how to change the business that's it. Like, nothing's going to happen in this industry if people don't actually try it.
Right.
Because look, it's not working. Like you can see it. In sports, we have all kinds of changes, which I would say is, ostrich head in the sand on that too, which is younger fans don't have a favorite team, right? They like a player. That's a very like sea change in the way people consume sports. The younger people typically don't watch a whole game. They watch the highlights. They care about the meta. They care about like what came around the game, what were the players wearing, what was the fashion, what is going on in their lives outside of the game and stuff. And all the sports leagues struggle with understanding that is a change, and because it affects a million things. It affects revenue from advertising if that group isn't watching it all the way through. That's where regulated gaming comes in and helps. If I have even a small bet on the game, I watch the game through. Like, it changes my perception of the game. And that is a challenge that we see right now, I would say in sports and in gaming together, is an understanding of, let's call it people under 25, is a really big hole in the market that I would say there are great solutions out there that can help fulfill this. But the leagues, teams, and operators in the gaming industry all need to sit down and actually make some effort to implement them. And again, like, I think the way to do that is to give yourself time back to do it, not just like say that it's tomorrow, because it's been tomorrow for 3 years.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. You know, it's funny. We talked a lot about success that you've had. What are the biggest challenges that you see? Specifically because we're a gaming focused show, but biggest challenges you see for us.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for, like I say, anyone in regulated gaming is just how quickly it changes, and how much it doesn't change at the same time.
Yeah. There
are areas that change quickly and areas that don't, and people don't move at those two speeds. This is a really two-speed industry.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, if you're bringing in a new product or service and you aren't bringing compliance and legal along, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's the same, I would say, in sports, as we especially in like AI projects. That's a good example where if you don't have compliance and legal at the table when you first even talk about bringing AI into a company or as a project, like, it's not going to go anywhere. You're talking to the wrong group. It'll never get deployed because they're too afraid of data leakage and all of these things. So that's a huge challenge. It's a challenge when AI, for example, is going to be the sea change in both of these industries. And so many of the, let's call it executive staff, generally doesn't use it on a day-to-day basis. And I think if they start using it, they get really excited and things move fast. And then you see the two-speed happening.
Right.
But 100% the biggest challenge in the industry is people that have not seen what AI can do to their business, and it's just going to happen to them. And an out-of-category example, I think, is like a general e-commerce retailer, right? So like we work with many of them. And the number of conversations I've had in the last few months as people realize it, which is our Google traffic and our web traffic has gone down dramatically. As people look in ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of these, like, what are the best noise canceling headphones? And like, that's where they do their research. And both of those companies have partnered with e-commerce partners. And by Christmas, there'll be a buy button. And if you aren't part of that flow as a retailer, like, you're going to just completely miss it. And I think that this, call it November to December buying season for the holidays, is really going to separate companies that understand it and companies that don't. And the ones that do are going to like have a killer year. And the ones that don't are not even going to know what happened to them. Like what happened to them. And it means building your site to understand, let's call it an agentic buyer. It's a bot. Like the person is never visiting your site. They're not going through your friendly flows and all that money you spent on UI and UX. It is just like inventory, price, availability, fast checkout. Like essentially, we've been calling it a fast lane for a bot to shop on your site for that buyer who is shopping in ChatGPT or Perplexity, and that's where they're doing it. And I think in this industry, it's the same thing. We've been talking to a few of like the, let's call it resort operators, that it's happening to them. Like, well, let's plan a trip to Vegas. Okay. Like if your resort isn't actually showing up as part of that planning because you haven't exposed all of that to those engines to be crawled, like you're just missing top of funnel.
Yeah.
So I think like when you're talking about like challenges, like this is a very blatant one that's coming really, really fast. And people that miss it are going to just completely miss their Q4 numbers.
So I had heard you say, I may quote you incorrectly, right? But you said AI is similar, where it's at now is similar to what mobile was when you started.
Yeah, except 10 times as fast.
So you're going to have to adopt, you're going to have to be much quicker.
Remember when the iPhone launched during those first bits, it was like, oh, should I have an app? And, you know, is it worth it for me? And, you know, who's going to do this and who's going to spend money? And then there was a whole, like now we're mobile first, like the amount of like even service industry people who said, hey, we'll be a mobile first company. And even properties like, hey, this is a mobile first product. Like our product is the app. Like that took 8 years to sort of reach that stage. We're, I would say, at the beginning of that curve, but this curve is going to like break by 2.5 years, where an AI first approach in your products and in your service offering and as a company is what's going to have people succeed or fail, like literally within the next 18 months.
So I when I was looking up again on LinkedIn today, I saw that you guys recently won a Webby. I didn't know what a Webby was. Is it?
Yeah, it's like the Oscars for web work.
Yeah.
So we're pretty proud of that. Something like that is really about direct to consumer, like building a great direct to consumer experience. So we won that for some work that we did for Kraft, which was obviously a way to reach people that were young and learning how to cook.
Yeah.
And so it's a product which helps you level up your culinary skills. And I think that like that as a product actually, you know, comes from a partnership with a company like Applied to understand like you need to produce new products in order to reach these new audiences. And there's a million reasons why. Look, cookies are going away. Like, look, I need first party data. Like basically everybody needs a reason for you to log in, or you can't get any data anymore. And so you have to provide products of value, or you don't get first party data and you're going to be blind. And so that means large companies needing to produce direct-to-consumer products to just get that. I think you guys fall into that category, obviously, because like you're a way to get first-party data. You're a way to know the customer intimately, like both in like what they'd like for leisure and concerts and stuff, and also like some of their regulated gaming behavior. Like that's rare and extremely valuable data, and it has a utility for the end user. That's why that trade-off works.
Yeah.
but I think that like that approach, and it's why you win awards on this kind of work or get shown at Google Next is because you have a relentless focus on meeting the business objectives, which is usually get data, understand the user, upsell them, find a way to have value, and at the same time not feel like you're just taking. You have to give that value to the end user or just forget it. Like there's a million other things they can do. And one of them is never talk to you again.
Right. Yeah. I love the book Good to Great. You've dealt with so many great companies.
Mm-hmm. Lucky.
Is there consistency? Is there one thing that they all share? I mean,
yeah. I don't think I've ever said this before, but one thing they all share is they're never as good as you hoped. Like even Apple and Nike and Disney, like you have this huge aspiration to work with them, as a vendor.
Yeah.
Because you know about all these amazing things, and yes, there are amazing parts of all of those companies. Like I think the Imagineering group at Disney is amazing. Like you just can't touch them. Like they're just amazing. But like when you get in there, you realize it's just people.
Yeah.
And the people have problems, and everyone is stretched really thin. At the leagues, it's really blatant. Like people are like what feels like doing 5 people's jobs.
Yeah.
In every industry, there's been the layoffs. Everyone is like just barely making it. And that is at every company, even these amazing brands that you think that do it all right. Yes, they do. They do, absolutely. But the commonality is that they're all a little bit of a shit show in different ways.
So we shouldn't feel bad then.
No,
So
and it's fine. I think the big thing is like, that's why you're there. You're generally there to help.
Right.
And it feels really good when you do that. And you have successes and have people be really happy to celebrate like a release of something, not just because like on our side we did it, but that their side is cheering because it was like a milestone for them. And like we really care about the people that we work with, that we help them be successful.
Yeah.
And guess what happens? They get promoted at their job, right?
Yeah.
Then they leave for more money somewhere else. Then they say, I need to do that again. They call up Apply and say, I need to do this again over here. And that's been the growth trajectory from 0 to 800 people, has been working with clients that we've helped do amazing things to succeed, who then went away in their careers, changed, and then called us up and brought us back.
Yeah.
That is, I would say, better than any LinkedIn post about whatever. That's heartfelt relationships and trust. That is, as they say, trust is built in dribbles and spent by the bucket.
Yeah.
That's really true. And so you always have to ensure you're delivering and doing what's right for your clients, even if it hurts your margin. That's not what matters. What matters is doing the right thing. I think Apply is incredibly ethical in that regard. Just really proud to have grown the company to be what it is with my partners, Chris Coughlin and Gautam Lohia, who have been also mentors to me in this as well. We're partners in the business, but they're mentors as well and great people.
I got to ask you, now they've been given to me 3, because it's technology. I've got to ask you 3 questions here. Your favorite app right now?
Favorite app right now? I would say there's 2. There's obviously, I'm consuming TikTok because I assume it's going away soon. So I'm just trying to get my use in before it gets imploded and goes away or gets destroyed on like the fun side. From the utility side on the apps, it's going to be like I have my buttons are mapped directly to a bunch of different LLMs. So I actually have a series of AI agents on my phone that I've written. That's my favorite app, is basically a personal assistant one, and one for note-taking and keeping up with things. So I guess my own app that no one else can have is my favorite.
All right, favorite digital experience you've had recently?
Yeah, I think making it through the Super Bowl with the NFL was we've done it now for 3 years. That's always an amazing moment when that comes and we make it through and everything survives. That's an amazing experience. But I guess like for me personally, it is, I'm going to be lame, but it is like when my agents tell me something that I hadn't realized and is a way to change my behavior, whether that's with my family or at work. Because it is not all about business. Like it's a therapist too in some ways. That's meaningful.
Yeah. Last one innovation you personally are most excited about.
Well, I would say I'd have to defer back to the work which is called Tastemaker for Kraft Heinz. I think it's really game changing in the market of making sure that we don't replace humans. That's not our goal. This is all helping people in a workflow do what they're best at and become more productive. I mean, yes, it has a big outsized effect on revenue, but like nobody was laid off because of that. Like it is about having people be more effective and faster and spending less time on, let's call it administrivia. And I think that that's very meaningful just in the market.
Okay, last question.
Mm-hmm.
For a company that's looking to make a digital transformation,
Sure.
what advice would you give them?
Oh, okay. So the advice would be is you have to, a couple of big points. One, you have to make sure that you have that executive buy-in if you're going to do that, which means you just have to have someone who's got time dedicated to that transformation. Two is it's very difficult to do it in-house. This is where partners, whether it's Apply or someone else, is very important. You need someone who, look, to be blunt, can't get fired if you ask a weird question or a hard question, to break through the political walls and silos in a company. Like, why doesn't this division talk to that division? A vendor is easier to do that because we can do that without like worrying about our rise at that company or that kind of thing. I think that's incredibly important. And then aligning it to a storytelling for the whole company of why you're doing this change. It can't just be a technology change. Like I see that's why digital transformations fail. It becomes at the worst like an ERP migration or something. Like that's not a transformation. That's just switching tech. It is the outcomes from this transformation are, and you need to know those at the beginning. Is it better understanding of our consumers and lifting revenue? Is it retention of employees, which by the way is a big one right now, is how are we going to get and retain employees with this transformation? Because, you know, a blunt example, I know a bunch of companies that have trouble hiring because they aren't AI enabled. And a relatively young knowledge worker, if you say they can't be using AI at their job, they're not going to work for you. And so like you need those North Stars in those digital transformations to get there, whether that's internal or external, but usually it's both. The best successes are, here's our business successes, here's our KPIs, we hit them, yes, we did this in, let's call it less than 2 years, like don't do a 10-year plan. And this is the effect on us and our employees and like call it just ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Mark.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed today. I feel smarter, not a hard thing, but I do feel smarter. And I hope everybody in the audience does as well. And thank you again for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Betting on Success. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for more insights from gaming industry leaders. We'll see you next time.